and be okay with being a foot soldier. Like, I'm okay with being a foot soldier. I don't want to be the front of it. I'm not the leader of any movement. I'm not the voice of the anti-Zionist Jews or anything like that. I consider myself a soldier. I'm being led by the real leaders of the Palestinian resistance movement. I'm on lowest on the level. I'm just making information videos. I'm the putty, you know what I mean? But we need 100 of them, thousands of them. I mean, I know some filmmakers better than me, man. They understand the psychology. Like, I knew if I cut Netanyahu with the stuff he was doing psychologically, I knew how those frames would go together before I even cut them. It's not a visual thing. It's how it's going to mentally affect people in every frame we do. We've learned how and when's too much, and understanding what, even in pro wrestling, they call crowd psychology. I know filmmakers understand stuff even better than me that I look up to. And I wish to God Steven, for instance, from Right Brain would get sober and get his camcorder out there. Where back in the day, Steven probably would have went to Gaza. He was crazy like that. I mean, he probably would have. I mean, if he could, he would, just to film it. I mean, so, just to capture it. So I think that, like, we really need artists to step the fuck up, especially Jewish artists. This is your time, okay? Like, the anti-Semite things don't stick on us as well.
We have Right Brain co-founder and director Kevin Ronca joining me once again. So good to see you here on the show.
So good to see you, always.
Mm-hmm. So as of recent, you made what I like to call a mashup video of all of the atrocities that have happened before October 7th that have been happening not just in Gaza, but also in the West Bank as well, throughout the whole of Palestine. And so in doing so, it really showed a lot of people the atrocities of what has been going on that the Palestinian people had to endure under Israeli illegal occupation. And I know I've had you on before, but would you say that this project was really just a labor of love and a labor of just vigilance when it came to trying to build this up so that we can get this message out to people?
Oh, absolutely. A labor of love for the Palestinian people. I have such a deep love for them as a culture, and a love that grew deeper the more I watched it. And I say this as somebody who, I only know maybe a handful of people that are Palestinian, but I know a journalist we hired who directly interviewed them. So there's sort of a one step remove where it used to be sort of like a major distance between it. So I think that we put, the thing is we run a business and we're building a movement with Right Brain TV that we 100% believe in, but because we're not a corporation, we are willing to, in the moment, rise to the occasion if need be and shift. And we believe our community understands, because we've created and cultivated this certain kind of community that I think, being an anti-imperialist streaming site, it understands like what takes precedent. And we make sure that we still have a full schedule. We drop just as much content, even though we maybe don't promote it as much. If you're a member, you're getting the same, plans that we made last year that we were super excited about, German punk. But this took the front for me. This is just, it's impossible for it not to consume everything. And to give you an example of it being a labor of love, the timing's crazy because we were about to celebrate the launch of what was called Phase 5. It's the fifth phase, a phase of Right Brain's 5 months. 5 months, we take a break. 5 months, we take a break. That's a year. So it was a little over 2 years ago we started the site. We started with 5 people in the first couple of months were members. I mean, we were not sure we'd be able to pay the light bill. And through, doing the Rome project, it's just been this incredible thing where we've started to see this thing build. And the site was always this open question of is there a need for underground anti-imperialist work? Do people even want this? And so we were really about to really be celebrating this moment. We even had a launch party. Jill Stein was supposed to stop by. We were going to have some Palestinians come on. But when we dropped the Soviet trailer for something that we'd been planning for a year, we were so excited about for Halloween. It was going to really build the company up. And this is going to circle back to what you said. The day we were doing a vending event and dropping the trailer for the Soviet, we were riding very high. And I get a message from a close friend saying, are you following this Palestine stuff? And I hadn't even seen it yet. And the person we were doing the Soviet project with, who has a very big following, is Muslim, and it hit her really hard. And we all just sort of agreed that we've been building this for a year. Yeah, it was going to be big for all of us, but you know what I mean? So it is a labor of love, and it became a consuming thing where it just didn't feel right doing anything else. And it certainly shifted some things around for me. But Yeah, I actually have a very deep love for all people, but for the people of Palestine specifically, since we were founded 7 years ago, it was something that was always really important to us, something we spoke about even back then, if you look. And the second film we ever licensed was about a Palestinian resistance fighter named Leila Khaled, who's called a terrorist, but amazingly managed to hijack an airplane, swap prisoners, and not take a single casualty. Where Israel can't even get, with all their power and all their money, they allegedly cannot get the people they're after without killing 20,000 people. But Leila Khaled, who comes from nothing, was able to hijack an Israeli plane with some of the most powerful people on it in Israel, being a Palestinian, which means she was probably even more suspicious, and didn't harm a single hair on anyone's head. In the documentary, they actually interview these people 20, 30 years later, like trying to, like, wasn't it traumatizing? And most of them were like, I mean, not really. I mean, I'm over it. It's not. Even the pilot was like, whatever. I mean, nobody got hurt. And she had a grenade, but she managed to swap like a lot of prisoners. That to me is effective. And I mean, it's so for me, this was something where it felt like what the thing is, I don't want anybody to think, and I really need to make it clear that I feel like I'm doing some honorable thing, or that I don't want to be the center of anything. I don't want to be the head of anything. When the Black Lives Matter stuff happened and the George Floyd, there was way too many white voices trying to corral and trying to be the front, and it's like nobody wants to hear you. But as a filmmaker, beyond being able to put my body up or, being able to, get arrested for it, I feel like this is something I'm trained in that I can do. And Rome always said that everybody has a role in the revolution, though I don't think this exudes me from going out and getting arrested trying to shut down Elbit weapons manufacturer. I think in addition to all artists should be doing this. I don't think you should get a pat on the back. I think if you're not doing this, what are you doing? You're an artist. This was what you were built to do. And this is the moment. Like, you have a moment right here to really fight back. This doesn't happen that often. I mean, yeah, you can make videos about Trump, make videos about this and that, but this is a moment right now that you could really utilize what you were trained in, whether you're a painter. And so for me, I just don't want anyone to think that I think this is some honorable thing. I honestly think it's a shame there's not many videos like this. I know some very powerful filmmakers that understand the crowd psychology and the psychology behind cinema and how frames put together and how you can exude certain feelings, which is what propaganda is for good, and are not using it. And it's like, dude, you're so fucking good. We need like 20, 30 right brains to fight back against Israel's information apparatus, which is $1 billion. And then with Hollywood, and we need a lot of people fighting back against it because, and I quoted a lot, Kenneth Anger's right, film is a spell. He said the day that camera was created was a dark day for mankind. And though I love film, it is a machine that can also do bad. It can put people in a trance. So I think that I just wanted to get out there. I don't want any white savior. I was having a couple calls with Rome trying to think of the best way to get the video out for the most possible eyeballs. Didn't want to do it through my account. Didn't want anyone to think that I'm looking for a viral moment. I actually think it is less of a chance on our page. I want people with bigger followings. There's no credits on the video. I don't even care if you tag us. And he was saying like, yeah, but you should, you did a lot of work. It should go back to the website. And I said, I really don't. It's not related to the website. This is unrelated to Right Brain TV. No relation. This is two guys making a film to fight back against Israel. Sorry, it's a long-winded answer, but I wanted to get that out there because,
That was beautifully said. And one thing I appreciate is that you are focusing not on centering yourself, but on centering the voices of people who are marginalized, which I think is extremely important. So I just want to give a shout out and a thank you for that there. One of the things that I wanted to share, and I'm not going to actually play it because I know you're traumatized from, doing all the editing, but I'm just going to share with you guys without actually playing it. So it will play a little bit, but
it's
I'm
okay.
not
I'm
going to. But this is the video. So Kevin was nice enough to allow me to fully upload it onto Twitter so that other people can watch. And this is the tweet that I said. I said, attention, the narrative that we see coming from Israel is that the crimes were committed by Palestine, and it all started on October 7th. Here's proof that it started long before that day, narrated by Benjamin Netanyahu and Michael Rappaport. Share this with everyone willing to listen to see the truth of what has been happening to the Palestinians before October 7th. A huge thank you to Right Brain TV for putting this mashup together to show the truth of what's happening on the ground for Palestine. So if you guys are not on Twitter, then you guys can watch it on my Rockfin channel. I have it up there fully so that you guys can see it as well. But if you guys are on Twitter, I highly encourage you, and please, if you can, share the video far and wide if you can. And it doesn't, even if you download the video yourself, put it on your own account, and then play it from your own account, upload it to Facebook, Instagram, whatever you want to, but make sure, because the ultimate goal is the message. So just please make sure to do that, because that's ultimately what it's about. And so there's this narrative that goes on constantly that October 7th, October 7th, October 7th. And it's like, wait, what about October 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 1st? What about September 30th? What about 2014? About the thousands of Palestinians that were murdered and massacred back in 2014? And so a lot of times people just don't want to ask that question, because a lot of people don't know, because their first attention to this crisis was October 7th. And so, and if you want to interject anytime, please, let me know, because I know when I go on a rant, it's all over.
No. I just, I keep, I've had a lot of people ask me to condemn Hamas, especially since I started putting some of this kind of work out. And I refuse to do it, because it's not a Westerner's job, even me, some shithead on their laptop and air conditioning, to condemn or not condemn the only standing armed resistance between the Israeli Empire and the Palestinians. It is not an American's job. It's completely inconsequential. It's futile. It doesn't mean anything. Nobody fucking cares, because it's none of your business. You can give empathy to the people being slaughtered. You can help raise awareness about that, but it's not your job. When people try to tell you to condemn Hamas, it's an age-old tactic going back to the CIA playbook of trying to get people to condemn resistant movements when things happen that are violent, to untether them so that they can keep them separate. You've seen it with, now, the Hong Kong protests were bullshit. I'm somebody, obviously my wife's Chinese, but I'm not, I mean, you could call me biased, but I've done a lot of research, and it was a U.S.-backed, the Azov battalion was there, but even then, it was backed by a Trump billionaire that was anti-Black Lives Matter, but even then, it was very key that they were trying to get them to disavow different people within that movement. And that's just an age-old trick, and don't do it. Don't do it, because what they want is they want to untether the Palestinians from Hamas, who is their only armed resistance. Now they're separated. Now they're just victims with nowhere to turn except to Israel. And I think it starts to shift the narrative away from what really happened, and it makes Hamas basically take the fall for 75 years of oppression. You don't even need to worry yourself, and I'm telling this to people who feel, but what they did. First off, we don't have a clear picture of what happened. It's becoming more and more apparent that people did die that day. What's not apparent is how many of them were IDF. Remember, Israel has one of the most advanced intelligence agencies beyond the CIA. Blackmail, going back to people possibly like Epstein. There's a good belief that Epstein was an asset. I don't want to say for 100%, but blackmail for sexual misdeeds. They're a very savvy, very dangerous intelligence apparatus. So it's really hard to tell who's a civilian and who's not. But I can tell you for one thing, what we know now, and there's a great video I'll send you if you haven't seen it, of a guy who kind of walks through it with a lot of information. I've not been following as much what happened on October 7th, because there's so much happening since then. But what we know is Israel was so shocked. They did know it might happen, and then they may have let it happen. In the moment it did happen, there was a lot of surprise, because Hamas immediately severed their communication center. That's the first thing they took. And they were very smart about it. They made it so Israel could not communicate with each other. You're talking about a massively surveillanced, very advanced group that can no longer communicate with each other. You've got these babies in the IDF that go in at 18. You've seen the videos of them. These are not, they have powerful weapons, but they're kids a lot. And so they were not able to communicate with each other, and the politicians panicked. You have Hamas, they know, is loose now. They know that I think they know that if this hits major news, the Palestinian thing is going to be in the forefront, because they're going to be asking a lot of questions how this happened. They've got citizens who they've been telling this entire time they're making safer than when they're not. They knew that the House of Cards was toppling, and they also knew they had people loose that may kidnap people for prisoner exchange, and they started indiscriminately firing. I 100% believe it. They started shooting tanks in different directions because they couldn't talk to each other for at least several hours. Imagine you have no surveillance, you can't speak to one another, barely, and you have a resistance group loose in your settlements. I never believed that Hamas went into a rave and killed 1,200 people. The story would be a lot more clear if it was 100% true. And if Israel was the victim, then they would just tell you the story straight. There'd be an investigative report. And what we've been getting is these little bits of cherry-picked information that change a lot as time goes on. That's not a good sign. If you look at the Holocaust, these are clear-cut things that are pretty cut and dry. Why won't Israel let any independent journalist look at any of the footage? Why do the numbers change so frequently? This is a grim thing to say, but there was a thing that struck me last year, 2 years ago. There's a mass shooting where a guy killed like 20 kindergartners or something, right? But what struck me in the news is he said it took like 25 minutes for this guy in a room with children to kill them all. Because surprisingly, even kids don't go down without a fight. This is not easy to kill that many people. To kill 1,200 people, with 9/11, it took a plane crashing into a building to kill that many people. It would take a lot longer than a few hours. This would not happen that quickly. And it's a massive undertaking for a group the size of Hamas to kill that many people, unless they're lobbing massive bombs with a machine gun. It's even a lot of clips, right? You're not hitting every time. So the story always made way more sense that it was a mix of both. But I think, in my belief, is that Hamas went to take political prisoners. Did they probably outsource to some more extreme groups because you need them? We do it too. Probably. And I often think of what my friend Callis said about the Warsaw uprisings. If you look at the Poles who escaped or who rose up against the Nazis, yeah, people got killed. If you're going to dance with the devil, you're going to be buried next to him. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to end up in the gravesite next to him. That's what a revolution is. If you think Mao and Che and these people that you have hanging on a poster on your wall got where they were by shaking hands and kissing babies, you're mistaken. So if you want to condemn Hamas, you can condemn Mao. I think that to circle back, that's the big trick they try to get. So I don't take any standpoint like that. And I think my idea was, if cinema is a weapon, I'm essentially arming whoever wants it. It's free. It's like an armory. What I call disinformation warfare, to fight back against Israel's information apparatus, and to dispense in any way you choose, to set that fire anywhere you think will be most effective. Show it to a friend, show it to a family member, put it on a blog group, wherever. Don't waste time crediting. I don't care. Just get it in front of people. Nobody fucking cares who made it. At the end of the day, people want to see it. When I watch a viral video that's informative, maybe later I look up who did it. I'm interested in the information. That is the key. Don't get hung up on anything else. Share it far and wide, everywhere humanly possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's interesting that you mentioned some of the IDF because a lot of people don't realize is that military service in Israel is mandatory. So you're basically put under conscription to serve if you're in IDF. So once you turn the age of 18, you're serving in the IDF. And so you either have to or you face jail. And interestingly enough, that's what happened to a young man. Let me share this with you guys as well. People are literally cheering on this young man because they're cheering on him for going to jail. Going to jail. He's getting cheers.
I'm surprised he only got 30 days. I'm surprised.
Yeah. The tweet. It says, Tal Mitnick, an 18-year-old from Tel Aviv, just refused to enlist in the Israeli army to protest the war in Gaza and the occupation. He was sentenced to 30 days in prison. He's a hero and also the sweetest kid. So this kid, Tal Mitnick, is going to prison for 30 days because he will not participate in genocide. So I just got to clap it up for this kid, this young man, I'm going to say, because he literally is saying, no, I refuse to kill anybody in service of a government that is apartheid that's committing gross atrocities against a people. And so, look, the kids are going to be all right. That's all I got to say. So
Yeah.
I like your reaction as well.
I think this is one of the reasons that Israel kind of got caught with its pants down. There's definitely commanders and people in their military, but a lot of their foot soldiers. I mean, if you've seen the training videos, these are not, ace, rah-rah American sign up, because I really want to go enlist and fight. These are like, remind me more of like, I don't even say Vietnam because those people had a lot more sympathy. Like if you look at like black soldiers that were sent there and a lot of the protest movements happened there, this is like one of the first people to not join the IDF because it's indoctrinated so young that they are this sort of superior race. But it shows you why Hamas, I think, was able to carry it out. You look at the Vietnam. I mean, they were outgunned, outmatched, and Ho Chi Minh and those people were able to get them to a standstill because they believe in what they're fighting for. You have like mercenaries or force duty or whatever up against people fighting for an idea, and those people will always, I think, find a way and end up being a lot harder to wipe out than always conceivably thought, which is why I think we've gotten in so many Middle Eastern skirmishes. Like you're fighting an ideology, a philosophy against capitalism, against imperialism, which is not an ideology. And so I think, in a way, this kid, I mean, their military, it was easy to be, I think, overtaken by people who are resistance fighters, who are fighting for their own freedom, fighting for life or death. It's not life or death for the IDF. It's the opposite. It's apartheid, it's occupation. It's like being in full control, and I think you put anybody in the corner against the wall, they're going to find a way if they really have that unbreakable spirit. And this kid, I think it's great with this kid. I think it's a shame he's one of the first, but in my experience, because we do not license films from Israel, it's actually illegal to be BDS, I think, in Pennsylvania, or at least, obviously heavily frowned upon, but we just don't do it. It's not like we get tons of Israeli videos, but there's a catalog we go to, and they had a few, and even some of them looked like they were well made. There's some good films in Israel, but we won't do it. But I have a friend in Israel, two friends in Israel, one who made the movie Devil Drivers, which was really great because he leaked it behind his agent's back, which could have got him in a lot of trouble when this whole conflict started and said, I want you to play for free. He could have gotten career ruin for that. I mean, he had signed a contract saying, I will not. And he signed away the rights to it, actually. So he didn't even own it anymore. And he had like a European manager or agent who was like really shrewd and didn't even want us to play it, period, and actually forced him to market it as not really somewhere in the middle when he's, I think, Palestinian or he's Muslim, I think. And but so I think that the thing about Israel is it's hard to sympathize in some ways. Anytime people are murdered is bad. But the thing is, if you look at some of the statistics, I was talking to a guy yesterday, he was trashing me, of course, on Twitter, which I don't give a shit, but he was saying, like, did you see the 75% of Palestinians that support Hamas? It's like, did you see the 56% of Israelis that did a study? It was a few years ago, and it was, 56% of Israelis, teen to adult, believe Arabs shouldn't be allowed to be their boss, shouldn't be allowed to live. They prefer not be in the same apartment building as them, be in the same school as them, be allowed to vote, and have the same rights as them. 56. I mean, that is staggering. I mean, in America, you'd at least pretend when you're voting that you probably just write some bullshit. I don't even think they're most racist. Some of the more racist Trumpers, they'd be like, no, equal opportunity, even though they know it's not. But in Israel, they're so used to being around racists that there's this sort of social thing where, like, now when they step into the real world, they end up looking a little sus because, like, yeah, you're so used to being around like racist white Zionist culture that you don't realize that, like, as soon as you step outside of that, places like Venezuela, these guys, you look crazy. I mean, you guys look nuts, and it's not weird to them that they feel so comfortable, like the Ukrainians Nazi saluting at like a sports stadium, in voting no, that Arabs are not equal human beings, and it's it's tough with Israel because it's like I've met one Israeli on my filmmaking journey, two who had sympathy for the Palestinians, and the one had a great film, but I told him we simply can't license it because you're going to then pay taxes to Israel, and I'm not, we can't do it. But he was a gay man living in Israel, and that's no picnic either. Don't let them get it twisted. Like, they're trying to put, like, really polish the Israel image now because the world's watching. They've been getting away with this dark secret for so long, and they have every European nation in their pocket with their media. But now that the secret's out, they're trying to say LGBT marriage laws in Israel are nuts. Like, you can kidnap your daughter essentially if she goes off and marries a Muslim. You can legally go to her house and restrain her and take her out of that environment. They're not even supposed to be married legally. You need a sanctioned rabbi through the state. If you're an Ethiopian who moves to Israel, you're like they thought they were the lowest on the food chain, the Zionist founders. And it's this weird flip reverse culture where like the white Ashkenazi, which would be me, is like the top of the food chain. I mean, not that reverse to where we live now. I'm saying like that specific group is like the fucking, I mean, I'm half Italian, so I'd probably be like a little lower, but like they thought Ethiopian Jews, Zionists, were the lowest. I think they even mentioned them like doing a lot of the work, the grunt work. I mean, there's a lot of Zionist quotes. So the sequel to this video is going to, there was so much. I mean, God, there was so much I couldn't put in. Like this video really should have been like 45 minutes. I mean, that's how much footage I had in the timeline. But,
Wow.
it's like we're so used to doing these longer projects. I had to start thinking more in the mindset of people who drop things on YouTube, who make viral videos. We don't really do that. So filmmaking is a much different muscle. The stuff that, who's the guy who did a lot of the viral Bernie videos? He's kind of like right brain, but he does much more YouTube mash videos, but he's gotten a lot of views. He did some stuff with Taibbi. I forget his name though. He has his own channel too. He did the like a really famous viral Bernie video where he was mashing stuff about the media blackout. Oh man, he's been on Jimmy Dore and stuff. I just can't think of his name though. He's like a
Matt Orphala.
Matt. Yeah. So yeah, like this is more like Matt's domain. We much more are trained, and it's like we were trained for 10 years in the 4-act structure of doing things at a certain way, and it's a completely different thing, which is why I respect so much what you guys do. These are totally different. It is not like a filmmaker can just jump over and make a viral video, just like Matt Orfalea could just jump over and do what we do. And so I wanted it to be like an hour, then I wanted it to be 45, and then it was taken away, and then it was like, no, this is actually getting a lot stronger because most people don't have an hour. You got, 15, 17 is already pushing it. So, I mean, it was definitely a challenge. This is not the kind of stuff I normally do. It's really hard for me to take so much information and put it in a way that doesn't feel cheap or dishonest to the viewer, or just have hospital bullying. And a lot of people are saying, and you can stop me, but ranting. But a lot of people have been saying things like, "Oh," and I get it. They're like, we don't need white people in the front of this movement speaking out, and Jews. I agree in theory, but the one thing I was on the fence, but ended up using in the video that I thought was very crucial was the Breaking the Silence organization of former IDF soldiers. They're the only people that can give us the inside and undisputed. Like, what are you going to say? They're anti-Semites. They served for 3 years in the IDF. The one woman moved from Pennsylvania to Israel for a birthright and joined the IDF willingly, and then found. So these are blank slates. These are people who are telling you they are trained to not treat these people as humans. I think we do need to let people like that speak, because a Palestinian is not going to be able to flip anybody. Then we need public consensus to shift. That's not going to happen to people who are that brainwashed. They need to hear an IDF soldier tell them, this is what I did. This is what we were told to do, mixed with the other stuff. And so I think that stuff is really crucial. That footage is great. The Breaking the Silence is a good organization. Do I think they're so heroic because they're speaking out? No, I think that's human and what they should do, just like me. But the one guy saying, and I could have put more. I wanted to put more of that in than just hospital blown up, dead baby, because like the human mind can, with film you learn a lot about psychology, and we will quickly become desensitized to the first 5 minutes of dead babies. I mean, everything after that's just gonna be like, yeah, so I just saw 5 minutes of dead babies. Like, yeah, so what? Like, and so you have to really think about how you're layering these things in, because the violence takes root in the human mind like a virus, like a parasitic being, and we're like a drug, and we grow a tolerance to it very quickly in real time.
Yeah, unfortunately that happens. And one of the things that you spoke about was it wasn't just the carnage, right? You also wanted to display really the bullying and the mistreatment of Palestinians, because the thing is, like, many of us, especially those of us who are on Twitter especially, we have seen the disfigured bodies, we have seen the dismembered babies due to the bombs that the IDF have been dropping on Gaza. That's no surprise to us. But what also hurts is the emotional turmoil that the Palestinians are subject to. Like, for instance, the gentleman that had 300 olive trees destroyed, that was his life's work. and it was completely destroyed by the IDF and by settlers just so that they can take that land. Or there was one where there was a gentleman that was on his rug praying. He was doing his prayer and he gets kicked in the head. And so this just goes to show that it's not. I love what Professor Anthony Zinke said a few weeks back. He said the goal isn't just to destroy the Palestinians, but it's to break their spirit, to break who they are, so that they do not dare ever have any type of pride or wanting to return to the land that their ancestors have been on for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so, in your view, what was one of the most impactful images that you decided this has to stay in this particular? And by the way, everybody who's in the audience, who's in the chat, if you guys have questions, I will also ask Kevin these questions as well live while he's here. But what was one of the ones where you said this image, this piece of video has to stay in order to have the impact that I need?
Well, first thing I'll say is I promised myself, my wife, and Mark that I will not cry this time around. I'm going to keep it clean, but I'll say the video, the stuff you're describing is the stuff that made me cry. So every time I do an edit, I have to rewind to the beginning of a sequence and watch the whole thing again because we're very anal, you could say, about timing and everything. So normally it's not a big deal, but when it's something like this, I have to rewatch that stuff over and over and over and over and over and over, the same clip 100 times in a night, like 100 in a night. It was amazing to me, like when we did some of the other stuff, like night crawlers. You know, you watch my friend Steven overdose, his horrible 3 minute straight shoots up overdoses. You watch it 100 times, though, you do by the 90th time, you're like, okay, like it sucks, but this is like, you start. With this stuff, I was amazed by how fresh the wounds felt, like every watch. And it was not the child killing stuff, yeah, but I grew up in the 9/11 post era where that was on the news all the time. And we've also seen this, if you've been following Palestine, this has been Eyes of Palestine. This has been happening a lot. We've been seeing this stuff for a very long time now. It's been a little more unspeakable lately, but it was the cruelty that just hit me a little different because, again, we desensitized quickly, I think, to the visual spectacle of like, I don't want to say spectacle, like the brutality of a dead baby. Obviously, everybody's going to react to that. But the psychological stuff, it takes a little longer to, I think, grow numb to. And unfortunately, that's a part of my job is I have to watch it enough times I grow numb to it or you're just not going to get anything done. And watching that guy cry because they cut down 100 olive trees was the one that did me in probably almost every viewing. I just wanted to give that guy the biggest hug. He looked like the sweetest man. And to think that, and the thing that really, the thing is, one of the reasons I wanted to do this video is I don't like to do videos where I feel like I know so much about it and I'm going to teach you. That's very much like a new documentary thing. The documentarians I like were always like, like John Pilger was like, I'm going to go here and find out. I'm going to search for truth and I'm going to learn. I'm going to come out of it learning as much as the people who are watching it. I'm going to come out of it like, whoa, now I have some perspective on it. So that I know a lot about Palestine. I did a lot of research on Zionism. I did a lot of research on settlers, which, the stone throwing, I knew a little, but I know a lot more now. And I didn't realize just how gleeful the settlers were in their destruction. And I didn't realize how gleeful the IDF was in protecting them. I mean, essentially the Palestinian Authority, which is like their police force, and they're in some of these settlements that have now been moved into by Jews. They're not allowed to do anything to settlers. They have no authority over settlers, but settlers essentially have the IDF there to protect them, not Palestinians, if they want to traumatize them. And all they do is like what a gym teacher might do. It was like they break up the fight when it goes a little too far. But if you see the one clip that really hurts me a lot, the girl saying that he's a piece of trash. She's telling a cop that this man who they're on his land is a piece of garbage. He's trash, disgusting trash. And the cop nods and says, I know. I mean, it sounds small. It's not a child being blown up, but the psychological idea of like two people dehumanizing somebody like that and having so little regard for it is shocking, even to somebody like me who knew Israel was terrible. I mean, shocking, dude. And the thing that bothers me too is these guys, like they look so not tough either. They are like, they have basically the teacher next to them and are just picking fights with people, and they know that they could just hide behind the teacher and get away with it. You're like, they tote these huge machine guns. You're the guy with pigtails who does not look tough. He's got a big old machine gun, and just pushing people around, and less than 1% of settlers, I didn't realize it was that low. They almost never go to jail. And even in the video, I didn't end up putting it in because it was too long, but there's a follow-up on the child who gets lit on fire. The guy who lit that child on fire served a year for lighting an 18-month-old child on fire. But a Palestinian stone thrower could serve up to 8 years and be locked up as young as 12 for throwing a rock. I mean, that is the most insane thing I've ever heard. You can light a child on fire who didn't do anything and get less time than a kid who throws a stone. If that's not a sign of the kind of state of things over there, this brain rot, this belief that Zionists are the superior race, everything makes sense if you understand that that's what their country was founded on. Even maybe worse than here, right? Yeah, America was founded on. Now I'm not talking about the genocide. I'm talking about the mentality, the psychology. Slavery was, we'll say, as bad. But the thing is, it's impossible for Israel. Like, we've kind of reformed a little. At least we don't literally sell. Like, it's still super racist. America's still fucking terrible. But they're living in like us in the 30s. I mean, they don't think anything's weird about it. They don't have a resistance. There's very minimal people who even think that's weird, and that's the scary part. America always had some resistance. Even the slaves revolted at times. Over there, it's like, well, yeah, there's nothing. There was a video the other day, I'm sure you saw it, of a school teacher being attacked by like 90 of them. These motherfuckers are like Power Ranger foot soldier putties. They're so one-minded. And yeah, I mean, it's really kind of scary. And they have nukes. I mean, Iran has never attacked, to my knowledge, Iran, if everyone's scared of having a nuke, has not attacked anybody. Hezbollah has, but not on any scale of what Israel's been doing the last decade, bombing 3 countries and still being the victim. And they have nukes. But Iran is the one everyone's worried about. Look at Israel. They have nukes, and they are one of the most ruthless regimes in the world. When I tell people that, because they're so civilized looking and developed, they don't believe it. They are one of the most ruthless regimes of the last several hundred years, I think.
I mean, North Korea has a nuke, and North Korea don't mess with nobody.
They don't.
I'm just saying.
The last time they invaded anyone ever,
Yeah. They don't invade people. So it's kind of interesting that you mentioned this. And when it comes to the brutality of what the IDF does, what Israel has been doing, this reminds me of a particular lecture. I got to be careful. Excuse me. I got to be careful about playing this, but there was a lecture by Dr. Joy DeGroy. She did a lecture called Post-Traumatic Slave Disorder. And this lecture led to a point where she showed a photo. And this photo was of a black man that was lynched. He was lynched. He was hanged from a tree. They cut off his genitals. They burned his body. And white people in the area gathered for a picnic, smiled in the photo, grimacing, from the youngest little children to the oldest of women and men, smiling for the photo. And then afterwards, they get pieces of the body as a souvenir. A nose, finger, toe, ear, and they place it on the mantle. What's going on? This is what happens when you dehumanize a population of people. My ancestors went through it. Indigenous people in this country went through it. It happened to many different people within African nations.
My ancestors too, the Jews, yeah, I mean, obviously more contemporary even. I mean, it's still happening in America with minorities, the dehumanizing, absolutely. So, I mean, it's not like it stopped, I think we definitely still see it.
Yeah. And so when you see people calling a group of people the children of the darkness, or they start dehumanizing them and calling them different names of animals or insects, that should give you pause.
Wow.
And when you continuously look past it and say, but Hamas, you're literally making an excuse for the extermination of a people due to the actions of a few, which is also called collective punishment, which is illegal according to international law. Collective punishment would also be, here's a good example of collective punishment. 9/11 is an example of collective punishment because you had some Saudis, we gotta be clear about it. Some Saudis decided to hijack a plane, ram it into a building because they wanted to punish the people who have done things to their country, namely the people who are in Washington, whether they're in Pentagon or the White House, but they harmed people who had nothing to do with it. That being said, that's what you call collective punishment. So it's the same thing that Israel is doing to the Palestinian people. And when people look at you and go, but Hamas, I'm like, okay, so if I have cancer, if I have a tumor in my body, are you going to kill me just to get rid of the tumor? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. To me, I feel like when this whole thing blew up, I think one of the things Israel was panicking about was that they knew people knew about Palestine a little bit, but only heard their side of the story. I think there was a little bit of a fear that this is about to go supersonic every media cycle, and these motherfuckers are going to dig. Not we don't got everybody paid off, and that it's going to get out that how this happened. And I think that was certainly a panic, and I think that's why they cooked up so many whopper stories from the beginning. It's like if you were beating a kid up every single day, taking his lunch money, and then one day, the 100th day, the 1,000th day, he gave you the whooping of your life. The story getting out that you've been beating a kid up for thousands of days straight is going to be immediately, well, yeah, that's what happens. And Israel needs that support. They're the Europe, white Europe countries, like big ally in the Middle East, and they needed their credibility to stay intact. So they need their side of the story to be out there. And I think that's why we saw such a hurry of like baby cut. They were really like, we need a whopper. I'm sure they were in a boardroom like, we need a fucking whopper to like make up for all 75 years of apartheid and occupation. Like once they find out the level of what we're doing here, even though we think it's fine, we're going to need a whopper because I'm not sure everyone's going to be cool with this. And you can literally feel through your computer screen like the dust of the Zionist script and playbook. Like they haven't upgraded that shit since like pre-internet days because they're so used to like 80% of the country supporting them because it was like, going back to pre-internet, post-World War II, they've always had the sympathy. They've always had their narrative out there. And you could like feel the dust because like you get into an argument with the Zionists, or they try not to, and it just doesn't last very long before they're just like going in circles and going back to try to get you to condemn Hamas. They'll be like, yeah, but 1,700 innocent people, like Dr. Phil, he'll say nothing can excuse, no matter what happened to the Palestinians, 1,700 people getting killed. And you're like, so then you agree that nothing, no matter what happened on that day, could excuse the killing of 20,000 people. And it's just like what? No, it's like, so you're saying it is essentially like you're saying that there's nothing, you're condemning Israel basically, because you're saying that no matter what happened on that day, nothing justifies killing civilians. Mm-hmm. But it only works their way, and that is the Zionist mind state. That is the rock. Yeah. They're so entitled. They so believe that they are above and more equal, and it's reflected. And when I was arguing with that guy saying, he's like, well, 75% of Palestinians support Hamas, and I said, well, 56% of Israelis think this. He goes, oh yeah, where'd you read that? I said, Tel Aviv University. They weren't even hiding that shit because they're so used to being superior. And there's when you hang around a lot of racist friends and you're racist, and you were to go to Watts or something, you're going to say some things that probably you shouldn't because you're just so used to being around people like that, I think. And Israel's culture is so rotten at the root that like we can already see it when we engage with these people online. They have lost the plot. So because they are just being told at a young age by their government, mostly white, that you guys are superior. These people are not humans. They're going to grow up to be terrorists. And it's embedded that like, when a person who's that brainwashed steps into the world with people who are not, it is like, it's almost scary, some of the stuff they write. I mean, some of the stuff that Michael Rappaport says, I mean, he should be arrested. I mean, I believe in freedom of speech, but if anything, he's inciting terrorism. The stuff he says could have real repercussions on Muslims in America. Thank God he has no influence and nobody likes him, and most of his likes come from Israel. But He's dangerous. Him and Lee Kern are very dangerous. Thank God they're both washed celebrities that nobody fucking cares. If they were George Clooney or somebody actually had some skin in the game, it could be very dangerous, the stuff that they say daily, because they're completely uneducated and they have a massive influence. They have a massive reach, and they say things that are just virtually wrong because they just have Israel telling them and paying for their. They think we're dumb. Like that guy Bobby Lee, that comedian, he aired it out, and I'm surprised he didn't get canceled. That Israel offered him to go over there, free paid expense with a bunch of comedians, but you had to tweet about Israel every day. Look at Michael Rappaport's page. It's so fucking obvious. Every day there's one tweet saying how great Israel. They did a show about how great Israel was. How much money are they getting paid? Women, money, everything.
Yeah. I didn't know what rotting cottage cheese would ever sound like until I heard Michael Rappaport speak. But
oh my God.
One of the things I want to share, and this is just to anybody who says anything about, well, Israel has 20% Arabs and the Arabs are doing all right. Yeah, well, let me share this with you guys just 1 second.
I think I know.
So always let them know, yes, 20% of Israel's population is Arab. But here is according to 972 magazine, figures obtained by local call reveal that the number of Arab prisoners is more than twice the number of Jewish ones, even though they make up only 20% of the general population. So over half of the prison population of Israel are Arabs. So when people say, oh, well, Arabs, they're treated equally. No, baby. It says the Israeli Prison Service, IPS, released the following figures. Out of a total of 20,568 inmates, 5,659 are Jewish. More than twice that number, 12,397 are Arab, and 2,512 are classified as other, including asylum seekers held in detention camps, as well as a handful of non-Israelis who are neither Jewish nor Arab. Says a portion of inmates among Israeli citizens, including residents of the West Bank and Gaza, stands at 43%, more than double the population in the general population. Among juveniles or kids, delinquents, the gaps are even more staggering. Out of a total of 281 minors held by IPS, only 100 are Jewish, 160 are Arabs, and the others are 21 inmates. If we take into account the number of Palestinian minors in Israeli custody, 511. The portion of Jewish inmates drops to a mere 13%. So, by that being said, most of the prisoners in Israel are Arab.
Yeah, the justice system's fucked there. There's a woman in the video who calls that guy a piece of trash. It's actually crazy because she's in these different clips, her family, but they're not even from the same documentary. Like, that's how fucked up this one settler family is. So, like, the video where the child gets lit on fire, there's a guy who says he doesn't pray for doom at all. That's the father, I believe, of the woman who calls that Palestinian trash in a totally different video. And they're, like, one of the more loud, famous settler groups. They're also in a Vice documentary. And she went to prison for, like, a year for, like, I think, like, throwing glass bottles at, like, a Palestinian driver's car or something like that. And she did not... That just shows you, like, she had no qualms. She thought of it almost like timeout. Like, she didn't think she had no reflection. She thought none of it was wrong. There's actually a clip I wish I left in that I took out where she said, well, I don't shed one tear if an Arab dies. So even though they're living amongst them, you also have to. There's a video that I also didn't put in. It's not Finkelstein, but there's another guy who's got a lot of great Palestine videos. He's always speaking to a room full of people, but I don't know his name, and that's one of the reasons I didn't use him. But he is Jewish, and he's sort of those people that changed his mind midway and is now really speaking out. And he was saying that there's a history of there's a secret police that I can't say the name of, I don't know what it is, but he gives a very historical account of how it was founded and how they do police the Arabs that do live there and make sure that they're sort of, you're very docile. You're very much like a domesticated animal in a way. Even if you do believe you're free, you certainly don't get it twisted. You are maybe the slave master had that one slave that got treated okay, but don't get it twisted. They don't think of you as a human. They think of you as somebody who's obedient to them and not causing them any issues and maybe even do work for them. But they don't want you to ever be their boss. Certainly don't want you to marry their daughter or live next door to them. But yeah, they'll live amongst you. I mean, look at that woman, that disgusting, fat, slobby woman who's like, She looks like, not to be rude, I mean, make fun of her looks, but she looks like somebody you see outside like a Philadelphia stadium after an Eagles game. Like, get the fuck out of here! Like, just the grossest. Like, and you think like someone on the street, like if it happened in Philly, even if there were some scummy people around, somebody just for the spectacle would be, yeah, like take it easy, like just stay at their home. But instead, you have a little kid behind her. You look behind her flipping the bird at whoever's filming, just giving her the thing. Like they don't. It's like Ukraine. Israel and Ukraine have a lot in common. They really do, because they're like these Jewish-run states that have a sort of supremacy. They've got, there's Azov links to Zionism and to Israel. Israel was funding Azov as well. There's definitely a strange link there, but Ukraine's the same. Like, there's such a racist culture, and now that the world's watching, they just can't even like help but, do you know what I mean? Like a new video every week, because it's just, that's every day for them. And now that the world's watching and they have to be the victim, it's just, how many times are we going to see a video in Ukraine where someone has like a Nazi tattoo and you're just trying to explain it away? It's like, these countries are deeply rooted in racism, white supremacy. There's so much historical stuff I didn't put in that's why I want to do the second video and just focus on Zionism and the past. Not as much modern brutal video. I wanted to do three, the past, present, and the future. The next one would be sort of like what happened that day and what's happening now. But the Zionism stuff, there's a video, there's a photo of a ship, a merchant ship, that Zionists were using. They made a deal with Hitler. I think they were going to close off a port, so Hitler was actually willing to work with Zionists to keep it open, keep things calm. So, because the Zionists were armed, they weren't as, I guess, submissive as a lot of the other Jews. And Hitler allowed them to use this merchant ship, and it had a swastika on it. And there's actually an old article photo it says like the headline says like puzzling, like swastika seen on merchant ship is like, the Zionists, like, they said the anti-Semites their best friend. Now, they had some explanation to why, but old quotes I found from Zionists I didn't include in this film, except for one. That was actually still in the timeline by accident when I was doing Rappaport's part, so I just put it there. But the second video is going to have a lot of quotes from Zionists. I mean, they don't even pretend that it's not a colonizing mentality. They say, there's this great quote by a Zionist, one of the founders. He says, the Arabs didn't kill us, Hitler did. The Arabs didn't do this to us. It makes why should the Arab, you have to understand the mentality. They have no reason to give it up, so they probably will resist, essentially admitting that they are in the wrong completely, but they don't care, because in Zionism, the belief is Jews have been pushed around long enough. We're God's people. And, it's sad. It's not sad in like, I feel so sorry for him. It's the sad story of like the guy who gets bullied so many times mentally that he now thinks I have to attack first, because early quotes about Palestine they found from settlers was saying like, they're a lazy culture, they're an undeveloped culture, they sit around all day on their farm and they don't do anything. Yeah, that's called peaceful people. They sit around on their farm and they're relaxed. They were a very calm population, because they also weren't wanted by anybody. The Palestinians were sort of Arabs who were kind of pushed away from. They weren't big, massive wealthy landowners. And the idea that and this would be the second video because I did a lot of research. The idea that the Israelis were treated terrible when they came over by the Arabs is not backed. The Arabs immediately tried to sell them land. I mean, immediately for a fair price. I mean, they were willing. They didn't like such a massive exodus. They felt it was getting a little crowded. But when they were under British rule at the time, which is the whole Lawrence of Arabia thing, they were basically under occupation. The British weren't very nice to the Jews either. But the interesting thing is, you always hear and I'll stop there right here. But you always hear well, why won't Egypt take the Palestinians? Why wouldn't Europe take the Jews? Why do they have to find a place far as fuck away to move all these exiled Jews that they let fall victim to the Holocaust? Because they didn't want them there. They didn't. They moved them and said, you can have half of this Arab land that's already occupied instead of staying here with us. I mean, we'll move you out here. It's the same. They didn't want the problems. They thought maybe the social unrest wouldn't be worth it. Yeah, I mean, Winston Churchill, what they were already doing to Arabs at that time was horrible. And the Israelis saw a moment of weakness. They saw the Palestinians were not that organized. They were not very militant at the time. And they basically built colonies overnight and basically ambushed them. I think that, the founders of Zionism are sick. I mean, the stuff they say is sick. Some of the earliest Zionist founders, one of the ones who actually, I think, helped found Tel Aviv, or one of the major capitals, is also a scientist. You can read about him. He believed in eugenics. He was one of the early race theory people that believed that Arabs' brains were smaller, heads were smaller. It very much was pushing those kinds of theories you see in museums now that you kind of say wow, that's ridiculous. How stupid. He's an early respected founder of Zionism. He's a medicine guy. Herschel, the Herschel, whatever the one guy's name is. I mean, Jordan, whatever. I mean, you can find quotes from any of these people that are like just unapologetic. I mean, even the first prime minister of Israel, there's a quote I was going to put in, I took out, that was like talking about, we need to get rid of the Arabs, and we are the pure race. We are the pure race.
Urian, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm. The pure race. I mean, it's very Nazi language. It's very
well. Yeah, so it's just as far as the way things go, it's, history may not repeat, but it damn sure rhymes. And so, that's one of the reasons why I think it's important that artistic expression is important when it comes to pushing forward for us to be better. That's one of the reasons why I was so adamant about helping you out with this, because I think it's absolutely necessary, because I have a big mouth, right? I'm just a big mouth guy with a channel, right? And so I think that it is necessary for me to use whatever I can in order to push that. And I've seen too much carnage to not help. One body is too many, and I've seen hundreds just online. And so I think this is why I feel like it's my duty to do that. And so I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be able to be a vessel to help push this out. But if you guys have not, then please make sure to not only watch it, but also share it widely as possible too, because ultimately what has to happen is that there is an information war going on, and the truth needs to win. That's ultimately what has to happen. And so if you guys have any questions or anything like that for Kevin, just please make sure to put it in the chat so I can ask. But I just want to give another thank you to you for, risking your mental health, for the sake of helping out the Palestinians to get the true narrative out there about what's really going on the ground.
I feel like when you take my glass off, I have like these hollow, sunken eyes. But the thing is, a friend of mine asked me the other day, she's like, what do you like? I mean, just tell the truth. Like, do you like enjoy or get some satisfaction or get off on this stuff, maybe even subconsciously? And I said, no, not at all. It's the opposite. This was like literally, you could ask my wife and mom, they were trying to tell me maybe you should let Mark do it. It's taking it's clearly affecting you. And it's really the most I've never been. I mean, like the Rome thing, yeah, it's sad to look at that stuff. It's horrible. But you think of the greater good. And like I said, when me and Rome made the movie, we had a blast. If you were to turn the cameras off, you would be like, what? Like, we're having fun. I mean, Rome lives it every day. He's not sitting here crying about it. And we know how to be professional. And we really enjoyed our time, because if you're enjoying your time together and you're bonding, the work's going to be good. Instead of feeling you're shooting some subject, we became friends. And it was much easier to get Rome to walk next to me and talk to me. And I know how to do it where I know that certain things I say to Rome will spark a new dialogue, and I just have my camera guys. I mean, I don't want to get too much into our methods, but I have the cameraman just following us, and I'm, just having a talk with him and keeping myself out of the frame. It looks like Rome's talking while he walks. But this was an entirely different thing. This was like, I had to force myself. I find like 20 different reasons not to do it. And then at 2 a.m, I'd be like, you were supposed to start this at 8. You've now done like 3 months worth of right brain work, and you got to fucking do it, man. Like, and I was telling my friend, it's not, I don't get any satisfaction in that sense. I feel that I have been, yes, my dad died. Yeah. A lot of my friends, I've seen a lot of death growing up. My best friend overdosed and died. And I've definitely been traumatized from a lot of things. Had a heart attack, was homeless. I've had bad things happen, but I find myself, the fact that I fucked the first third of my life up, dealt drugs, almost went to prison, was homeless. I mean, for most people where I live, that is the end. You either go to jail, you overdose, or you find God. The fact that I was able to go to film school after showing absolutely nothing that gave me any right to be able to go. I had no resume. I hadn't put any work in, and I was given a chance. And the fact that I was able to go do the thing that I love, it occurred to me that it was too much of a one note. There was no dialectic thing happening there. It was like, oh, Kevin gets sent to school, his dad pays for it, and he gets to go around and make Hollywood movies after doing nothing for society for the first 30 years of his life, except doing drugs and being a selfish consumer and ignoring the horrors of the world. And I felt like when I woke up, it was like this giant boulder I'm going to carry around the rest of my life that I'm completely okay with, where I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life on this earth. Yes, I get to do what I like, which is already more than most people. I should have been dead by 26 when I had that heart attack, and I've been given this new lease on life. So this is going to be the thing that I carry around with me the rest of my life. I'm going to use this role and this opportunity I've been given to only make work about this stuff. It's almost like I was given, not in a bad way, like a curse. It's like, this is going to be my life, and I'm okay with it. I resigned to it, and I think the more work I do like this, I don't grow numb as a human. I still have empathy, but you have to be able to separate. You have to be able to mentally block out where it's not going to get done. You know, when I was in Detroit, you have to go into it. I can put myself in a place mentally. It's almost a state of meditation or a state of hypnosis where I can just say, you're here to do this. We can worry about the other stuff later. You talk to a therapist in 20 years, but there's just no time. This needs to be done now. And I think that because I have the ability to do that, because I seem to be desensitized enough to be able to handle it and don't have a shrink, I think that pile the trauma on, because there's a greater good happening here, and I think that it's a small price to pay. The mental health of one white American who's been given everything to, absorb the pain of people who have been given nothing, millions of people. To me, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I don't know why more filmmakers aren't stepping up. This is what you were put here to do. Film has always been a weapon. We always say the earliest guns had cameras on them. The earliest camera was attached to a gun. When the first, if you listen to Mark's incredible podcast that not enough people have listened on the site, they look at Rome's doc and these bigger, I think more flashy things, but there's a project called Origins of Cinema where Mark gives this Carl Sagan 5-episode vocal history of the camera and how all these people, like a relay, slowly would develop it for thousands of years from cave times all the way to now. And we ended up with this machine that is so powerful that Hollywood, all these countries, even Mao, recognize the power of this machine. But the amount of people it took, the amount of people that died to get it there, the war journalists, the Arabian mathematicians who were locked in cells. I mean, and notice the light coming through their cell window onto the wall to realize how pinhole projection works. All of these people have created this incredible machine. And if you know how to use this machine and you don't know how to use a gun, this is your weapon of resistance. And everybody who knows how to cut two frames together should be doing it. You're not going to go to Elbit, like my friend Kala, free Kala Walsh and all the people who went to Cambridge and the Palestine, all my, some of those people are my friends. You're not going to do that. You're not going to put your body on the line. If you don't have a clean criminal record and you're not willing to go to jail for this shit, you sure as hell better at least be making these videos if you're an artist. We're painting. We're doing graffiti. We're doing music. If you are still making these self-grandizing, searching for your own identity stuff, I mean, you're already lost. You've already lost the plot. Not to be rude, but that is the most insignificant thing. And as I always say, I think your 5 friends and your mom and dad will live without your new project dropping this year. I maybe sound cold saying it, but we need like 100 videos like this swarming the internet. Israel is such a powerful information warfare apparatus hooked to their intelligence community. They have brainwashed an entire race of people that I don't believe anyone's inherently born evil. That's the Zionist belief that like Palestinians were born to be terrorists. I think that everyone's a blank slate, and they have convinced an entire race of people that it's okay to kill 20,000 people to save a handful of them. So just imagine how much work needs to be done. And 80% of Americans a few years ago supported them. So just think how much work we need to do with information to wake people up. There needs to be many more videos like this. And I only have 2 hands and so much time. I'm already pulling 30 hours. I'm doing Right Brain. I'm doing this video for free. So there's not enough. We don't have any employees, right? If I had a team under me, I'd have 10 of them on it right now. We'd be doing a bunch of videos. But any artist right now, if you've been like searching for purpose and no offense, crying during COVID and like, oh, I'm not feeling inspired, it is like right in front of you. There's a fucking genocide happening in front of you nationally. If nothing gets the spark under you, forget yourself and find inspiration in this. I felt like there was never a moment where I wasn't like amped. I felt like I was like probably how fucking Eminem or some of these rappers feel when they're making a diss track against their sworn enemy. I felt like I am attacking Israel, an empire, and with a weapon that I know how to use, and it felt good to be fighting the darkest forces. At least, you know, put that in your mind that you are fighting against this massive evil empire. And be okay with being a foot soldier. Like, I'm okay with being a foot soldier. I don't want to be the front of it. I'm not the leader of any movement. I'm not the voice of the anti-Zionist Jews or anything like that. I just, I consider myself a soldier. I'm being led by the real leaders of the Palestinian resistance movement. I'm on lowest on the level. We're the, you know, I'm just making information videos. I'm the putty, you know what I mean? But we need 100 of them, thousands of them. I mean, I know some filmmakers better than me, man. They understand the psychology. Like, I knew if I cut Netanyahu with the stuff he was doing psychologically, I knew how those frames would go together before I even cut them. It's not a visual thing; it's how it's going to mentally affect people in every frame we do. We've learned how and when's too much, and understanding what, you know, even in pro wrestling they call crowd psychology. I know filmmakers understand stuff even better than me that I look up to, and I wish to God Steven, for instance, from Right Brain would get sober and get his camcorder out there. Where back in the day, Steven probably would have went to Gaza. He was crazy like that. I mean, he probably would have. I mean, if he could. He would, just to film it. I mean, so, you know, just to capture it. So I think that, like, we really need artists to step the fuck up, especially Jewish artists. This is your time, okay? Like, the anti-Semite things don't stick on us as well. The self-hating Jew thing, it's just kind of silly. Nobody really buys it, you know? It's like all they have. Oh, well, how come this Jewish guy's calling it out? Oh, well, he hates himself. That's what it's all a deflection. We need Jewish artists, Jewish speakers, not to be the front of it, but to take the brunt of it, be the shield. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take any criticism. I'd be willing. You know, like I always say, I want all the smoke. Any Zionist, Canary Mission, who watches people and posts them publicly so they get shamed and lose their job. Go ahead. There's nothing you can take away from us. We don't have jobs. We are blacklisted from our industry. I've been homeless before. I don't care. I mean, really, I'd like to absorb it because those smears on some of my friends who aren't Jewish are sticking. Oh, those people who shut down Elbit, they just hate Jewish people. Look, there are a couple of Irish white people and they hate Jewish people. I mean, it's bullshit, but it sticks. Americans are very emotional. And Israel, not to go on a long rant, Israel understands how emotional Americans are. That's why they had the baby killing thing ready. That's why Netanyahu at the end of the video is in that room on a hidden camera saying, Americans are not hard to trick. They're emotional creatures to the point of it's a crutch. Like, they haven't seen enough or experienced enough. And so therefore you say baby, you say rape, you got them, dude. We need to be doing the same thing back, but with truth. You know, I mean, them telling us about these things that they've yet to show any proof of. We're actually showing the video of a guy being held down and an IDF soldier kicking him in the face in Jerusalem. Like, there is nothing that guy could have done, because my mom was like, are you afraid people will say, well, maybe that's just a convenient clip? There's nothing that can justify doing that to somebody. I don't care if he, you know, had live rounds and a gun and was heading towards Jerusalem. Once you have them on the ground, you do not football style punt their face anywhere. You know, like, those were the clips I wanted to use, where it's like, I don't care what happened before the camera came on. There's no reason 12 people should be manhandling a child.
Yeah. And, you know, there's parts in the video where it shows how they're treating children literally in Gaza, you know, the IDF. And so this is why I think it is so important for videos like this to go out. And, you know, just thank you for the work that you've done in regards to this video and getting the word out. And I just want to tell you how much, you know, is appreciated. And, you know, keep up the great work. And I have shared the link to Right Brain a few times in the chat. So if anybody who would like to also subscribe to Right Brain Studios, please make sure to do so. Kevin and Mark do great work, especially when it comes to anti-imperialist work. And they also curate very well-made cinema in their streaming platform. So thank you so very much. I just wanted to thank you.
I appreciate it. If you've been donating money to Palestine so you don't have money, or you've been giving to any of the mutual aids, send us a DM, show us proof that you did it, and we will gladly give you a membership. I mean, if your money's going to something like that, we are happy to let you watch our stuff. I mean, it's not a big deal to us. Now, I don't know. Do I have to get off soon? Is there a moment to plug anything, or is it, how long do I have?
Yeah, please go ahead. Let people know where to find you and your final words too.
Man, nobody has any questions, huh? That's all right. So tonight we're doing a screening for a movie called Rebel Dykes. We haven't had a lot of time to promote it because of the Palestine stuff, and I feel like it is more important, but these female filmmakers, they made a great film, and it's a shame I can't promote it as much as I'd like to. But if you live in Philadelphia or you're just sitting at home tonight, for $5, you buy a ticket on the website, you click Right Brain Theater, you click on the poster, it'll send you to the membership section, buy a ticket. It's a virtual screening, and or in Philly, it's $5. It's a movie called Rebel Dykes. One of the crucial parts of the 80s punk movement that fought back against racist and homophobic and capitalist, what's her name? What's the woman's name from the UK from the 80s? And she's like Reagan. I just can't think of her name now. Thatcher. Sort of yeah, like the punk was a really big, crucial fight back against Thatcher era England, which was a conservative, terrible time to be alive. Yeah. And what a lot of people don't know that have been erased from the history books of rock and roll is how much the queer community was a part of that. In the style, in the dress, in the mentality, they were already fighting for their rights. A lot of them predate a lot of the LGBT activists in the UK. Like a lot of those punk, what they call the Rebel Dykes, came first. These bold, powerful, queer punks, and this film is them telling their history. It's a great film. It's $5 to watch it, and 25% of it's going to the Brave Space Alliance, which I believe is based in Atlanta. So that's one thing I wanted to plug. It's tonight with doors open at 8. We do you can come into the theater. It's just a screen, and then there'll be like a countdown till the movie with trailers and things. Like you're at a real theater, you can grab a joint, and so if anybody is interested, it's $5 a ticket. And the other thing is, if you didn't know, we recently opened up a shop. It hasn't been a month yet, but at the end of the month, we're going to be donating, like Goodwill does, 1% of the shop to 25% to Palestine. We're doing Doctors Without Borders. I think each month we're going to change the organization. Before we were doing a NERA, but it's not, we don't really like merch shops. It's meant to capture the love of thrifting. We love thrifting. There used to be a time where you could get like stuff for cheap, and the prices look funky, but you gotta think it's free shipping. But you never know what, we're pulling stuff from our personal collection to sell it to raise money for projects and for Palestine. And we have some treasures. I mean, there's the records in there. There's an original James Baldwin 78 hardcover for $10. It's going for $40 on eBay. $10. We're talking about some of his earliest work. We've got records by Odetta and John Lennon. We just had the Dirty Word. It's sold. It's gone now, but it was like $10. And we just have these up for pre-order, and they are super limited. So I want to show them. These are coming out. We're doing a line of tape. We like, we like legitimate hard media. What they call physical media. They each come with reversible covers. These are Soviet horror movies. We have licensed and sourced from the original 35mm print. Every tape has reversible covers, so you can decide which cover you like better. They come on red tape. They're going to have an intro of history in the beginning of them. If you still have a VHS player, dust that thing off because these are going to be sweet and a good chance to have a piece of Right Brain on your shelf. We're also putting out my documentary I shot in China. There's only a couple left. We're only doing a 5 run of each. It's super limited to see if people like it. So you may have one of the only copies. If you have a VCR, I highly recommend grabbing a pre-order of these. Some of the money goes to Palestine. And they're dope. I don't know. I love the Soviet artwork. I love we have Nightcrawlers is available. Mr. Designer is one of the best Soviet horror movies ever made. They come in these nice big clamshell cases like Disney movies. They're collectible too. If you look at the spines, if you're one of those kind of people, they're numbered and you get them all. So if you're into that kind of thing, please go to the shop and check it out.
Yeah, definitely. There is one question from somebody. Sakudo says, I have a question. Have you ever been approached by members of the deep state or suspected? I don't know if that's a answerable question on here, but if you don't want to, then that's fine.
I've never been approached by anybody. I think that I was so hated in my industry that I wasn't seen as somebody that you would really want to align with. As far as maybe using my skills, no. But someone tried to hire me, and I'm not proud of it. I think I quit, but I initially thought of taking the job. But somebody I know was writing a script that I knew wasn't going to go anywhere. And unfortunately, we've fallen out since the Palestine stuff. He's also Jewish, but his rhetoric's definitely changed. When I met him, he was not very vocal about that kind of stuff. But he ended up meeting somebody in the industry. He's a doctor who retired, and he was writing a script. And the way he pitched it to me was a little different than what I ended up reading, which was like sort of trying to say that Israel was there first. And it like starts with like a skull being uncovered. It was really terrible. And I was like, nobody's ever going to see this anyway. So I considered taking the job, but nobody with any power has ever come to me and said, make videos for me. But what was the other part of the question? It was, have you ever been approached by the deep state? But there was a second part. What was that?
or suspected?
Yeah, I've had people on podcasts. I was on Ron's podcast. I don't trust this guy. There's always a couple people in the left who just think anybody is a narc. And I mean, I welcome people to go look our history up. Going back to 2016, 16 when we were founded, I think we've been on the right side of almost everything. And I mean, you can hard pressed to find any ties to anything. I mean, believe me, if I was taking that CIA bag, I probably wouldn't be living in my mom's basement, unemployable in my industry. I think I'd be doing a little better than that. I think that I gave it all up because I don't want to be a part of that. Because even the people in Hollywood are not like, oh, they weren't approached by the CIA, but they are still working for the CIA. They're still pushing the imperialist agenda. They probably wouldn't do it if it was sold to them like that, but it's sold to them like, hey, we're going to give you a new war movie. Oh, I've always wanted to, finally, someone's going to let me make a movie. You're going to make this movie, though. It's going to be about this. And the tentacles are deep. But yeah, no, it's actually the opposite. Leaving Hollywood's probably why I never did have to work for any of that stuff. But yeah, it's a good question. I always definitely get the people on a podcast, though, in the comments saying, oh, I don't trust him. He's a sus. He's sus. I never heard of him. Yeah, we don't have a big viral movement like you guys. We never did. Filmmakers often don't. Like YouTubers do. Most directors I know don't have like a huge mass movement like Rome does or something. You know what I mean? Like we drop like once a year. We just don't really have that. So that's why you probably haven't heard.
All right. Thank you so very much. And thank you so very much for your time, Kevin. And I appreciate you coming on. Of course, you're always invited back to discuss, because I think it's important that we talk about the link between art and liberation. So I think that is a deeply important subject. And I just want to thank you for coming on.
I want to thank you, the only podcaster that really has me on anymore. And I mean, people ask me, why aren't you on more podcasts? We don't get invited anywhere. So if you have a podcast you like, just tell them to have us on, man. We'd love to go on and talk to more people in your world. I think we need to be working together. We both provide something, I think.
Definitely. I'll see you in the background. We'll be messaging each other throughout.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye.